Hello students. Today we are going to do a next chapter from book Moments, that is Weathering Storm in Irsama. So what is the theme of the chapter? The theme is that when a natural calamity like a storm takes place, people are put to a lot of suffering. Apart from the help the government provides, the members of society, community should also mobilize themselves to solve their problems. In this story, we see how a young boy, hardly of 19 years old, takes the initiative and helps the members of his community to stand on their feet. His leadership qualities are praised. So now let's know about the author. Author Harsh Mandhir is an Indian author who was born on 17 April 1955. He was a great communist, researcher, teacher, and a social activist who really works with survivors of mass violence and hunger, as well as homeless persons and street children too. He is the director of the Center for Equity Studies, a research organization based in New Delhi. So, the title of the chapter, Weathering Storm in Irsama, how it is an apt one. A superstorm happens in Irsama, Orissa state in 1999. A boy called Prashant sees nearly 2,500 people in the pitiable condition in a storm shelter. He mobilized the people to help themselves and provided help to them. He arranged accommodation and food for them. Even after the storm was over, for several months he was involved in rehabilitation work for the community. Since the article speaks about the efforts of the people to overcome the destruction caused by the storm, the title is appropriate. Okay, so now let's know about the characters of the chapter. Characters, the first is Prashant, and this is the most important one only. Prashant is a young boy just 19 years old. He finds himself in a village devastated by the superstorm in Orissa in 1999. He visits a storm shelter in his village and decides to help them out. He takes up a leadership role and starts organizing the people. For several months, he helps the people to overcome their difficulties and come back to normal life. He becomes a helper of orphans and widows. He becomes the savior of all of them. Thus, we find Prashant to be a born leader who is ready to work hard to help people to solve their problems. The people of his village are grateful for all his efforts. He is a role model for youth of our country. Now, let's know more about the chapter. On October 27, 1999, Prashant visited Irsama, a small coastal town in Orissa. It was some 18 kilometers from his village, Kalikuda. The purpose of the visit was to spend a day with a friend. In the evening, a super cyclone hit the coastal area. It rained heavily and constantly. It uprooted the trees and washed away many houses. The wind blew at the speed of 350 kilometers per hour. The friend's house was made of brick and mortar. It proved strong enough to withstand the storm. But the angry waters entered the ground floor. The storm continued for 36 hours. To escape the rising water in the house, the entire family took shelter on the roof. Swollen animal bodies and human corpses, dead bodies, floated in every direction. Only cracked cement houses stood in a few places. 2 coconut trees had fallen on the roof of the house. The soft coconuts saved the trapped family from starvation for the next few days. Prashant, with his friend's family, spent the next 2 days in the open on the rooftop. All felt very cold. 2 days seemed to Prashant like 2 years. He began to worry about his own family in the village. He had lost his mother already some years ago. The rain ceased, but the situation was still dangerous. Prashant knew he had to go. Taking a long sturdy stick, he started on his 18-kilometer journey through the flood waters. He used his stick to locate the road and to know where the water was most shallow. His progress was slow. At places he lost the road. His progress was really slow. Luckily, he got the company of two friends of his uncle. They too had a very bad experience. They too had to push aside many dead bodies of humans as well as dogs and cattle. Prashant could find barely a house standing on the roadside village. He wept loud and long. At last, Prashant reached his village, Kalikuda. He found only the ruins of his house. He decided to go to Red Cross shelter to look for his family. His maternal grandfather rushed to meet him. They had long given him up for dead. But it was a miracle that he had survived. He was united with his brother, sister, uncle, and aunts at the camp. There were about 2,500 people in the shelter. It was the fourth day at the shelter so far. They had lived on green coconuts. Prashant, a a boy of only 19, stepped in as leader of his village. He organized young boys and even elders to collect some rice from the merchants. The rice was already rotting, but the survivors ate the boiled rice with relish. The next task was to clean the shelter and provide medical aid to the injured ones. On the fifth day, a military helicopter dropped some food parcels. It didn't return. Prashant and the party let the children lie in the sand with the utensils on their stomachs. The passing helicopter got the message and started airdropping food regularly. Food problem was solved considerably. But the greater problem was how to settle the orphaned children and widows. He persuaded the women to start working in the Food for Work program. Prashant organized sports events, cricket matches for children. The government planned to set up institutions for orphans and widows. But this was opposed by the volunteers. They wanted children to grow up in homes so as to grow with love and the widows not to feel lonely, so they were settled in their own community itself in families made up of childless widows and orphan children. Thus, Prashant's group healed the wounded spirit of the people. He had no time to bother about his own fate and loss. So, student, what message do we get from this chapter? This lesson conveys the message that when a natural calamity strikes, the members of the community should help themselves. They shouldn't be totally dependent upon the government to provide help. It also gives the message that the youth have a major role to play in organizing the community to help themselves. Youth should provide a leadership role to solve the problems of the common people. In the lesson, we see the leadership provided by Prashant during the superstorm in Orissa village. We should specially concentrate our efforts on women and children who form the most vulnerable section of society. I hope you understood the chapter well. Thanks for watching.